Hey everybody, Dr. Jared Skowron from Spectrum Awakening. So I'm going to be talking today kind of about all the lab tests that are out there that you may be interested in, whether you get it through your doctor, whether you get it through our website, doesn't matter. But we'll have that 25% coupon on Black Friday weekend for the lab work. Next week, we're going to talk about all the different supplements, kind of review everything so that you can make sure you get what you want, and you might as well use it when the specials are running. Okay, so before we get into lab testing, that's really what we're going to focus on today is lab testing. A few agenda items. Number one, last week, somebody made a comment about our Panda Bear supplement and concerns about soy, which had me concerned because our label for our Panda Bear supplement says gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and non-GMO, and our label better match what's inside. Because kind of like openness about what we've got and what we have to offer is essential. So I contacted our producer, and yes, Panda Bear is soy-free. Okay, it does not contain any soy. The vitamin E supplement that's in it, most vitamin E supplements are soy-based. This one is sunflower-based. So it is a sunflower-based, not a soy-based vitamin E. So that's what we want to do for you. So that's for the Panda Bear. Next, our new glutathione supplement. So a couple weeks ago, we launched a new glutathione supplement. It's oral. It comes in this preloaded syringe. People were concerned that it does contain an ingredient that is derived from dairy products, okay? Excuse me. So what I wanted to say first, if you got our glutathione supplement, didn't know it has a dairy-derived ingredient in it, and you would like a refund, email us, and we will give you that refund. You don't need to ship it back to us. Just contact us. We will give you a refund if you feel like, hey, I didn't know there was dairy in here and there is. Oh, geez, we understand that. Please, we want to make sure that you are using what you want to use for your kids. So feel free to email us and contact us, and we'll give you that email in a little bit. Also, the ingredient in the glutathione is something called lactoferrin. All right. Now, the lactoferrin substance is actually produced in our own body. In fact, breast milk contains lactoferrin, and it's a really great antioxidant. This antioxidant, again, lactoferrin is derived from milk. It's not casein. It's not the casein protein. It's not lactose. It's not the milk sugar. So the odds of there being a problem with lactoferrin derived from milk in people who are allergic or sensitive to milk is very, very small. But still, we understand if you want to be completely dairy-free, we want to support you in that, you can always contact us. Okay. And the third thing is a brand new supplement for us. So we got a brand new supplement. We're launching it today. And it is another supplement to add to our detox treatment. And this is our alpha lipoic acid. So we have a new alpha lipoic acid supplement. It is called ALA Spectrum. ALA Spectrum. And each capsule is 250 milligrams of alpha lipoic acid. So for those of you who are using alpha lipoic acid for detox, it's a great thing to do. Here's our gluten-free, dairy-free Spectrum Awakening form of alpha lipoic acid. And for those of you who are not familiar with alpha lipoic acid, here's a couple research studies on it. This one, really interesting, is an animal study. It's a rat study that the researchers injected thimerosal, which is the mercury preservative of vaccines. You know, mercury kills the brain. So they injected the mercury into the rats and then gave them alpha lipoic acid. And here's what they said. Exposure to thimerosal, that's mercury from vaccines, mimicking the childhood vaccine schedule. So they injected thimerosal at a weight-adjusted dose for the rats, can induce abnormal social interactions and stereotype behavior similar to autism. Okay? Abnormalities may be ameliorated by alpha lipoic acid, and this indicates that alpha lipoic acid may protect against mercurial-induced abnormal behaviors. Excuse me, I ate something funny for lunch. So, pretty cool research study. If you've ever had mercury in any of your vaccines, which includes either the vitamin K shot or the Hep B shot, I forget, one or the other, or any kind of flu shots, you've had mercury injected into you. Mercury is that stuff in thermometers that we don't use anymore because it's so toxic. Well, it's still in vaccines. Some vaccines, not many. So ALA is great for that. And here's another research study. This is alpha lipoic acid effects on the brain as an antiviral and inflammatory signaling treatment. Alpha lipoic acid, which here they abbreviate LA, not ALA. Alpha lipoic acid can control antiviral mechanisms associated with neural dysfunction. Alpha lipoic acid prevented glial cytotoxicity, that's brain cells, which was correlated with increased expression of factors known to control glutamate, cysteine, and glutathione. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Potential for alpha-lipoic acid efficacy in viral-induced brain pathologies, with the caveat that the ALA has antiviral effects. So ALA is not just detox, it's antiviral, healing brain cells, and improving mercury toxicity. So pretty cool stuff. Okay. So we talked about the Panda Bear. It is soy-free. It's confirmed. We talked about our glutathione. If you don't like that it has a milk-derived lactoferrin in it, contact us. We'll give you a full refund. Don't need to even send it back. And the new alpha-lipoic acid. So that's kind of the agenda items. Excuse me again. Boy, what did I eat? Something funny. All right. Let's get into lab testing. Actually, before lab testing, let me give you the coupon for the weekend. Lab 20 will get you 20% off anything this weekend, your supplements, your lab tests, anything on our website except bundles that are already 25% off. That expires Sunday, November 14th. Also, if you want a telemedicine appointment, we only have a handful of telemedicine appointments left for this calendar year. So if you plan on submitting our super bills to your insurance company, before the deductible renews, set up a telemedicine appointment with us. Again, we've got a handful left for the rest of 2021. Contact us 203-265-0444 if you have a question on your order. Email customer service at spectrumawakening.com. All right, so the real question, what I've done is I've printed out my PowerPoint lecture from the TACA conference. So TACA is a wonderful family support group for families with autism. I did a couple lectures at their conference last month, and this is a kind of a summary of my lab testing PowerPoints. You're going to see my PowerPoints here. So basically, when we wonder what lab tests should I look at, you got to answer the question, what do you want? Do you want more language, better behavior, more sleep, more focus, attention, better poop, more independence, okay? Once you decide what you want, that'll help us figure out what testing to get. Now, the first question you need to answer, as I talk about all the time, how did you get here, okay? Was your child regressive, which happens around 12 to 18 months, normally associated with toxins, especially Tylenol, and or was your child non-regressive? Did they develop slowly from the beginning, okay? A lot of those are born with a genetic condition. A lot of those kids are non-responders to treatments. If you feel like your kid is a non-responder, if you feel like your child kind of was born delayed and did not have a regression, you got to get genetic testing done, okay? So let's talk about, we'll get to that in a minute. So we'll get to genetic testing as well. That's the first question. What kind of genetic testing do you need? Next, we need to look at other testing because if you feel like your child regressed, odds are you've got some kind of toxicity. So we need to figure out what the toxins do. The toxins affect your brain chemistry. We've got to look at that. Toxins affect your mitochondria. We got to look at that. You can have immune system issues, which could be pandas, autoimmune issues, gut infections, candida, food reactions, etc. So these are just a few of the things that we need to do. So what I'm going to be doing right now is walking through a lot of examples of lab test results from kids on the spectrum so we can figure all this out. All right, so we're going to start with typical lab work you might get from your pediatrician, which is a CBC and a metabolic panel, also known as a CMP or a BMP. You may look at different levels of markers like hemoglobin and hematocrit. If they're low, that may indicate that you've got a iron deficiency. So a lot of our kids who don't eat enough beef are often anemic. You got to catch that, okay? You may find kids who have in the CBC their MCV and MCH that are elevated. This actually indicates a B vitamin deficiency. So now we've got some abnormal markers. You may have a B vitamin problem. The CBC can also look at white blood cells, which is your immune system. And this patient of mine had a low immune system. So when you've got a low immune system, I always wonder, did toxins affect the immune system and now my immune system's low and I'm rampant with all these infections? Do I have Lyme disease? Do I have a viral infection? Do I have Candida in the gut? So many different things. Now, a metabolic panel is going to look at your liver and kidney function Kids will often have this marker, alkaline phosphatase, elevated. That just means they're in a growth spurt. You don't have to worry about that one. But if you've got an ALT or AST elevated like this child does here, this may be indicated of a viral infection. We talked last week about viral infections and autoimmune issues in the brain. So these are just the typical lab tests you probably had with your pediatrician. It can highlight iron problems. It can highlight B vitamin problems. It can highlight viral infection problems, okay? So just your basic blood work from your pediatrician might indicate something. Okay, now let's get into more. Excuse me, genetic testing. There's 3 types of genetic testing, okay? Actually, there's 5 types of genetic testing. Sorry about that. The first one you might have is something called a karyotype. That's a very basic genetic test. Sees if you're missing giant pieces of DNA. That's normally fine. We can also look for Fragile X. That's one genetic problem that can occur. Very rare, but we've had a handful of patients. You want to get something called a microarray. That looks for missing pieces of DNA. You want to get a whole exome sequence, WES. That looks for mutations in any of your 20,000 DNA. You may also want a SNP analysis. This is like MTHFR and COMT and histamine genes. This is the status of your genes, not a diagnosis. Now, why do we want to do this genetic testing? Because, as this research study from Harvard says last year, this Harvard study looked at 299 kids, and 12% of them with autism had genetic findings that affected their cognitive issues, their language issues, and their motor scores, okay? When they did that genetic testing, they found treatments in 72% of those genetic problems. So a lot of people ask me, why am I doing genetic testing? How's it going to change my kid? Because we can find treatments, okay? And that's what I find a lot of people, it's an urban myth that, I can do genetic testing, but I can't do anything with it. That's a lie, okay? You can get treatments from your genetic testing. So here's some examples. Here's a patient of mine with Fragile X. So we tested for Fragile X condition, and yes, they have Fragile X disease. So if you don't test for that, you don't know. Very rare, but it's out there. This is a patient this is a microarray, and a microarray looks for extra pieces or missing pieces of DNA. So this patient had a loss. This is a missing piece of DNA. Then they had an extra piece of DNA over here, okay? So some of their DNA is missing and some has extra, more than they need, and both of those things can cause problems. Here's a patient of mine. We did this whole exome sequence. They had 2 genetic issues, one called a TRP12, one called a LRRK2. Again, treatable things. This patient had a genetic condition called Phelan-McDermid syndrome, okay, which uses totally different treatments than autism. And again, this is where we do this genetic testing. Autism is a subjective diagnosis. You may be born with a genetic condition, not know it unless you test. And the treatments for autism aren't going to work because, maybe you really don't have autism. Maybe you have some other kind of condition that looks like autism and gets diagnosed as autism, but has a totally different treatment, okay? Here's a patient of mine who had another genetic condition called a SHANK2 mutation that gives you a susceptibility to autism. So, again, genetic testing, conventional genetic testing, which we've got on our website, will help you identify, was my child born with a genetic condition, and if so, how do I treat it? Now, you can also do SNP testing. That's genetic testing for things like COMT and vitamin D receptors and MAOA and MTHFR. And these are very, very popular tests. We've got one on our website, but again, really popular tests to kind of not diagnose a genetic condition, but show me who am I as an individual and how I can improve myself. Okay, now let's get into brain chemistry testing, all right? Your brain runs on chemicals. Some of the chemicals make your brain go faster, some make them go slower, all right? If you're not driving at the right speed, it's gonna affect your language, it's gonna affect your mood, it's gonna affect your behavior, your sleep, your sensory function, your motor function, okay? Because the brain chemistry runs all those neurons that affect so many parts of the body. So you can get these different types of brain chemistry tests, which we do in our office. You can look at epinephrine, which is adrenaline, norepinephrine, dopamine. This patient has a huge level of dopamine. You can see here, 4,800, supposed to be less than 1,100. This kid is just, dopamine's an accelerant. So this kid is just bouncing off the walls. There's no sleep. There's hyperactivity. There's using all your furniture as a jungle gym, just non-stop. On the opposite side of the scale, here's another similar test. This patient's dopamine level was really low, had a 73, supposed to be less than 295. you've got low brain chemicals like this, it's really hard to focus, it's hard to pay attention, you got a lot of anxiety, all right? Then we can get into serotonin analysis. Serotonin, we use a marker called 5-HIAA. This patient's serotonin levels are super high. I've got this patient's serotonin levels that are super low. Okay, you got low serotonin. Guess what? You're depressed, you're not sleeping, and you're probably constipated. Okay, serotonin helps the gut move. So you can look at all these chemicals of the brain. Did you know you can test your melatonin levels? Here's a melatonin test. We tested a patient's melatonin levels. Is your child sleeping well? If they're not, do they make enough melatonin? Our brain makes its own melatonin. We can test for these things, okay? We can learn so much, and I'll take a pause here to go on a soapbox. I get frustrated when I hear people go up to their pediatrician and say, hey, my kid's got autism. I want to run some lab tests to figure out what's going on. And the pediatrician says, yeah, there's nothing I can do. There's so much you can do, okay? They're not specialists in autism, okay? They're general practitioners for kids. There's so much we can do. All right, let's move on and talk about toxins, all right? A lot of toxins out there. There's heavy metals, there's a porphyrin test, there's glyphosates, there's chemicals, there's pesticides. There's hundreds and hundreds, about thousands of toxins in our world, okay? We can test for some of them, like this kid had huge levels of arsenic, off the charts. I'm always going to test aluminum. This patient's aluminum level off the charts. We got to detox aluminum because aluminum is a brain poison. You also want a porphyrins test. A porphyrin is kind of a global analysis of toxic damage. And if your porphyrin levels are high, it indicates you got a lot of toxicity in the body. So these are the tests that we run so we can look at toxic burden. And again, we've got these heavy metal tests on our website. If you want to look at heavy metals, you can do that. We really want to get as much testing done as possible. Okay, now let's look at the immune system. And I know I'm talking fast here, but I'm talking fast because we got a lot to go through, and I want to make sure I kind of cover it all in general, just to show you all the testing that is available for you and your kid. Okay. Immune system. We want to look at the immune system because you might have infections like yeast, candida, mold, bacteria, parasites, viral infections, Lyme disease. You may have pandas or PANS, which is an autoimmune condition. You may have food allergies, food sensitivities. And we can also look at your general immune system function. So these tests, immunoglobulin G and A and M, these look at general immune reaction. This patient is having a huge immune system reaction. So we have to ask to what? What are you fighting? How can we help you treat it? Okay, here's another one, immunoglobulin. This one is really low. So this patient's immune system not functioning at all. That's going to predispose you to huge infections like Candida, which is really, really common, or viruses or mold, etc. Okay. We can also do antibody testing for specific things. So an antibody test for Coxsackie virus. Okay, we can do blood work and see if you've got different viral infections. We can do urine analysis for mold. Okay, so this is a mold test through Great Plains. You can look to see if you have mold in your child's body just by collecting the urine. We've got this mold test on our website as well, all right? You wanna look to see if there's a herpes reaction. Here, we can test for herpes in a kid. We can test for Lyme disease and all the other tick-borne illnesses like Babesia and Bartonella and Ehrlichia and Anaplasma, okay? So we can look for Lyme. Here's a patient who's Lyme, came back, and this test here, this is a Lyme panel. This patient's Lyme disease was abnormal. This kid's got Lyme disease. Okay, we see it right here. We want to make sure we treat it. All right, moving on. For those of you who are concerned about pandas or PANS, okay, we can look for antibodies to strep. So this is a strep antibody test called anti-streptolysin O. We can see if you're responding to strep. You can also look at something called anti-DNase B. That's another marker for strep. And if you're concerned about pandas or PANS, which is just kind of a viral-induced pandas instead of a strep-induced pandas, either way, it's the same. It's an autoimmune reaction against the brain. We got these blood tests now that can look at autoimmune attacks on the brain. This is one that we do in our office through Quest, okay? Do you have pandas or PANS? We can do all this, all right? And this patient of mine actually had autoimmune antibodies attacking the brain, okay? If you don't test, you're just guessing, okay? So the more you test, the more you know, okay? And I gotta say this comment from Alawatomi. My pediatrician asked me, why do you need more testing since we know the problem is autism? And that is such a cop-out, okay? I'm starting to get more and more pissed about these things because you're a pediatrician. You're here to help children with medical issues. Autism is a medical issue. Don't blow it off because you don't know what to do. That's fine if you don't know what to do, but refer to somebody who does know what to do, okay? It's not just the autism. It's a medical condition that's causing developmental delays, and I'd like to help my child. So either you're here to help my child or you're just here to waste my time. And either way, we want to help these kids. So I call on pediatricians not to say, hey, you don't know what to do. It's not your specialty. But there is stuff to do. So please refer to someone who does know what to do. Okay. All right, moving on. Gut testing. Okay, did I hold this up? No, I didn't. Gut testing. If you think your child has bacterial infection, Candida, parasites, if you want to analyze probiotics or digestion or leaky gut or inflammation or prebiotics, okay, you want to do a gut test. You want to do a really good stool test. We got stool tests on our website, GI Map, Genova's GIFX, great stool tests. Here is a marker. This patient had an immune system reaction that's off the charts. Why? Because they've got some kind of infection they're fighting, okay? This patient, we looked at their digestion. They have low digestion. Does your kid have a big bloated belly? Okay, because they're not digesting their food and the food just sits there and ferments and makes all this gas, okay? You may have an E. coli infection, okay? Check this patient out, big E. coli infection. Yeah, you want to treat that. You know why your kid is screaming and upset? Because they're in pain. They're in pain because they've got a E. coli infection in the gut, or they have a migraine, or they're pushing a tooth. Okay, there's always a reason. Next, you can look for these intestinal infections with a urine test through an oat test. Okay, we've got oat tests on our website. We got the Great Plains oat test that you can also get with the mold test. We've got the Genova super oat test that has an oat test plus a heavy metal test plus a fish oil analysis. You can get these on our website. Here's another one. This is Great Plains organic acid test. We found yeast and bacteria in this patient with their oat test. You can look at prebiotics. This is a prebiotic analysis, okay? This patient's prebiotics were horrific and causing so much inflammation. We can treat that, okay? You can test for celiac, all right? Now, here's celiac, and let me say this. Most of the time, celiac testing comes back negative, which is a good thing. You don't want celiac. But just because you don't have celiac doesn't mean you don't have an allergy to gluten, okay? Celiac is an autoimmune reaction to gluten. You can have an allergy to gluten without having an autoimmune reaction. So just because the celiac test is normal doesn't mean you should eat gluten, okay? And I see a lot of gastroenterologists go down that road, and it's the wrong choice, okay? Do what works. Do what works. All right. Basia from the UK says, you're the only person in the medical field that explains stuff so well. Well, I only have a few talents. This is one of them. All right. Don't ask me to fix my car or anything like that or fix something in the house. This is what I do. All right. Next, we want to test oxalates or oxalic acid. Oxalates, which are high in this patient, are often an indication of intestinal infections. And a lot of people go on low oxalate diets and take oxalate supplements, and we've got an oxalate supplement as well. But honestly, I think it just means more intestinal infections that you've got to treat. Okay. Next, food testing. Nobody can handle all foods, period. You got to find out which foods are good for your child, which foods are bad for your child. We can do food allergy testing, okay? This child is a food allergy test. Their allergies, they've got a bunch of allergies, almost allergic to every food. Peanut, wheat, walnut, dairy, soy, shrimp, scallops, sesame, hazelnut, cashews, almonds, so many allergies. Allergy tests are known as IgE tests, okay? But food sensitivities are known as an IgG test. So you can get IgG testing to see if you're sensitive to a food versus allergic to a food. Those are different body responses, but still, it's both a bad response. So if you're allergic or sensitive to a food, you should probably avoid it. All right. We also worry about histamine levels. Histamine can cause a lot of behavioral problems, so we're going to test histamine levels in the blood. We can also test for Candida in the blood as well. This patient was normal, but again, we used this example as a histamine. What if allergies are causing problems? Okay. Next, mitochondria. You want to test mitochondria because mitochondria produce energy. About half the kids with autism have mitochondrial dysfunction. You may have constipation, reflux, seizures, low muscle tone, head banging, migraines. We've got to figure out if the mitochondria are working, okay? Carnitine is one of the most important nutrients for the mitochondria, so we run carnitine tests. This patient was super low in carnitine. We give them a carnitine supplement and things start improving, all right? Next, this is an oat test that shows abnormalities in certain organic acids. that suggest mitochondrial problems. You can do that test through Great Plains or through Genova, which we have on our website. You can also do it through regular labs like Quest. Here's an organic acid test through Quest. All these abnormalities, we know this one was a vitamin B2 deficiency. This one indicated a gut infection. You can get these tests done, okay? Whether you use a specialty lab, whether you get them from our website, whether you get them from your doctor in a regular lab, get these tests done, okay? Again, you can get these labs on our website. You can sign up and have a telemedicine appointment with me, and I'll order all these labs for you, all right? We want to get to the bottom of things. Next, hormone testing, all right? When I say hormones, not just sex hormones, not just testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, but thyroid hormones, very underdiagnosed. Cortisol hormone, always associated with stimming, transitional anxiety, bad stress reactions, okay? Most hormones, except thyroid, come from cholesterol. So if you have low cholesterol, you're gonna have big hormone problems, okay? We like cholesterol to be around a 170, okay? This patient's cholesterol was a 95. Conventional medicine say, great, low cholesterol, low risk for heart disease and stroke. Yeah, maybe, but guess what? Low hormones and all the emotional problems that come from low hormones. All right, we always, again, here's a hormone, pregnenolone. Most people don't know about this hormone, but it's really important. We've got a supplement of this hormone to help. This patient has a 13, supposed to be 28 to 140. So we've got a hormone deficiency that affects behavior and mood. Why? Pregnenolone creates cortisol, which is your stress hormone. This patient's cortisol level was super low, okay? Almost to the point of having Addison's disease. What does this cause? Massive transitional anxiety, walking on eggshells, okay? Here's another patient, super, super angry. Why? Their cortisol level was high, all right? Are we looking at Cushing's? Are we looking at just a huge stress response? You've got to test to find out. Next, thyroid panel. This patient, massively hypothyroid. Pediatrician ignored it, okay? We've got to treat what we find, all right? Also, if you're doing thyroid testing, or if you have thyroid problems in the family, you also want to run antibodies. This is the thyroid antibodies that indicates Hashimoto's disease. Here's a couple other tests on here. We measure B12 and folate. This patient's folate was really low. You give them folinic acid, and they respond great. They start talking better, etc. Maria says, how do you increase cholesterol? And there's cholesterol pills out there that can be prescribed by a doctor. I used to do that, but I don't anymore. Instead, I give pregnenolone because the assembly line of hormones starts with cholesterol. Cholesterol turns into pregnenolone, which we can test and give as a supplement. And pregnenolone then becomes all the hormones except thyroid hormone. So we start right here at pregnenolone. We give pregnenolone supplements. Again, we have these on our website. That'll support all of the other hormone productions except thyroid hormone. So I don't like to give the cholesterol supplements, because you got to keep testing your cholesterol, keep measuring levels. And there is a risk for heart disease and stroke with that, so I just avoid that. All right, you got a real angry kid, post-puberty, maybe it's high testosterone. This kid's testosterone off the charts, lots of anger with that. All right, hold on. Ooh, did I take a breath yet? I can just keep going. Also, we want to look at different nutritional tests, okay? You got a kid who's a picky eater and you don't give a multi, you're going to have nutritional deficiencies. It's just the way it is. If you don't eat beef, you're going to become anemic and low iron and low B12. It's just the way it is, okay? So test. Look at these levels, vitamins, minerals, proteins. Amino acids are the building blocks, proteins, omegas. You can test for all this stuff. Again, here is an amino acid test that we run. And this patient had high of these, low of these. Those indicate different nutritional needs that we can prescribe and help your child. Again, this patient's B12 level was really high. B12 level starts going high, you may get neuropathy, okay? Can they not hold things because they have neuropathy in the hands and feet and can't describe it to you, all right? We can also look at copper levels and zinc levels. This patient's copper levels was deficient, okay? This copper deficient, this kind of cause behavioral problems. Vitamin D, okay? Most of the world's vitamin D deficient. You can test your vitamin D. Make sure you're getting some vitamin D, especially now in the winter. I mentioned beef and iron. This is an iron test called ferritin. This patient was iron deficient. Your kid's tired? Your kid's cranky? What if they're anemic? And you don't know because you didn't test. But honestly, if you don't eat beef, I don't mean chicken, I don't mean turkey, I don't mean fish, I mean cow. If you don't eat cow, you're probably going to become anemic unless you supplement, okay? And I'm not saying you have to eat beef. I'm saying make sure your iron levels are good wherever you get it. All right, Few more, then we'll take some live questions. Vitamin A, we test. This patient's low in vitamin A. Vitamin A is a wonderful antiviral. This patient was low in vitamin E. Okay, we can test for all these things. Also tested B6 in this patient. Oh wait, I just finally finished. Holy cow, I didn't know when I was gonna end. Deep breaths. All right, so let me kind of turn down the speed again a little bit. There is so much testing out there. And I know I just went super fast on all this, but I wanted to kind of show you a brief overview of everything that you can do. So let me kind of slow down and summarize it. Autism is a medical condition. It's not a behavioral condition. It's not a choice. It's not your parenting. It's a medical condition, okay? What do we do in medicine to figure out the problem? We test. We do tests. We run tests. We run imaging and take pictures, figure out the problem, and treat it. Okay, so I encourage you, please, if you have had some testing done, fill in the blanks. If you're new to this whole biomedical thing, welcome aboard, join the club, and let's get a bunch of testing done, all right? And to review the different categories of testing, we've got genetic testing, okay? And again, genetic testing is super important if your child's a non-responder, or if you think they were born delayed and it's kind of slow to develop from the beginning. Get the microarray, the CMA, and the WES on our website from your physician. Doesn't matter, get the test done, okay? Then if your child regressed, which is more common, but if your child regressed, you gotta look for toxins. You gotta do heavy metal tests and porphyrins. Also, toxins affect so many parts of the body. We gotta look at brain chemistry. You gotta look at mitochondria. You gotta look at your immune system. You gotta look for autoimmune like pandas and pans, gut infections, candida, food reactions, nutrient deficiencies. So many tests can be run so we can figure out how to treat your child best. Now, we can just give different treatments and see what happens, and then that's okay. But if you really want to get down to the bottom of it, get some testing done. We got lots of tests on our website available for you. When you order a test from our website, you get the results, and I write a written interpretation with some treatment ideas for you. So you'll get that with the test. You just won't get the test result, be like, what do I do with this? Okay, I'm gonna walk you through it, all right? So get the test done, whether it's our website, whether it's your doctor, get those things done. And again, you can get the test on our website, or if you sign up as a telemedicine patient with me, I'll order all this stuff for you and walk you through everything. But I'll tell you, if you haven't had enough testing done, you don't know what's going on, okay? So why guess when you can test?